Okay, we are going to call to order the Narragansett Town Council special meeting. Today is February 23rd, 2023, and the time is 5 p.m. The reason for this meeting is that concerns were raised about possible violations of the Open Meeting Act regarding the public notices that were posted with the executive sessions held on January 30th and February 1st, 2023. So as a result, we are holding a special session tonight. So the first motion is, oops. Oh, right. So the next motion, there's a motion to accept the call and warrant for the emergency town council meeting of February 23rd, 23 at 5 p.m. and that the warrant be made a part of the record of this meeting. So I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferrandi. Motion passes 5-0. So next, I'm going to lay out the procedure for the agenda items for this meeting. Council members will have the opportunity to make nominations, a nomination and why the individual is being nominated. And then we'll continue to take nominations from council members until no more nominations are made. And then at that time, council members will discuss nominees and we'll determine a consensus and we'll make a motion to appoint. I will allow for public comment after we have discussion from the council members on nominees. With that being said, we have a motion to discuss, vote, and appoint the town solicitor.
I'd like to make a nomination.
I'm sorry, we have to open the motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Motion passes. So now we'll take nominations.
Motion to nominate Mark Davis.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate James Callahan to be reappointed as the town solicitor.
Are there any other nominations? We're nominating. There's no seconds. Any other nominations?
Is this just for solicitor?
Yes. With no other nominations, so we would like to, we will open it up for discussion to the council members for the nominees. So I will start with.
Did you want us to say something about the person that we nominated before everybody else speaks?
Yeah, sure. So since I nominated Mark first, can I go first, Eva?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So I nominate Mark Davis. Mark Davis has served effectively in the past. Mark Davis, as far as his duties, the majority of time of a town solicitor is falling in the head of speaking and working and interacting with our town staff and the town manager. The town staff and the town manager highly found him effective to work with. He has a great amount of time as the town is his clearly only major account. So he's very quick as responsive, and I have found Mark to be a great counsel in the past.
Okay, Councilor Cicely Bonanno.
Do you want me to go through like the resume of James Callahan?
You don't need to go through the
all fabulous
resume.
Work he's done, or how would you like me to proceed?
So
I mean, he's been the town solicitor for Narragansett. He's a solicitor in North Kingston. He just obtained Block Island. He's been extremely knowledgeable. He knows the staff. He's lived in the community. I just could go on and on. I don't know if, Deb, if you want to add to the expertise of the Callahan and Callahan Association, but you might want to say a
Councilor
couple
Kopech.
wonderful things.
I definitely agree with what Susan said. I think that James Callahan has been an excellent advisor to the town council, the town manager, and our staff. He is responsive, and his advice has been very valuable with regard to the outstanding cases facing the town of Narragansett, as well as day-to-day advice to the council and staff. During his tenure, no lawsuits were filed against the town, and at the same time, the town prevailed in 2 major cases, including a suit contesting the town's right to establish parking requirements on town-owned rights-of-way, and the legality of the 4 unrelated people occupying a rental property, an ordinance that is currently actively used with regard to rental properties in the town. Mr. Callahan had no involvement in the legal advice that preceded both attempts at upholding the 3-student ordinance. In the first go-around, the Solicitor of Record was Mark Davis, and in the second, the Solicitor of Record was Andrew Berg. His record elsewhere has been stellar as well, and his understanding of municipal government and municipal law is unparalleled with regard to the other applicants for this position. In fact, he was the only applicant with both relevant experience as a municipal solicitor and as a former president of a town council, that being Narragansett. Thank you.
Councilor Ferrandi.
I have no comment.
You can discuss other nominees as well. So no comment, okay.
I have
So-
nothing further to say.
I have a strong opposition to Mark, so I'd like to read my opposition.
Okay, well, again,
So,
yep, you can cover
Yeah.
both of them, sure.
okay, so I strongly oppose Mark Davis to become the Narragansett Town Solicitor. He has limited experience in municipal government and law. Most of his work has been in general practice, real estate, and finance. His first opportunity working in municipal law and government was in 2017 when he was a solicitor in the town of Narragansett. During that time, he dealt with a variety of issues: the Belmont Building, the library pensions, the Pier Liquors, Muda food court fiasco, and the Matt Riley case. We certainly know how all those legal issues ended. I believe Mark is not a good choice for this town, and he lacks professionalism and good ethics. I would also like to ask this council to reconsider for James Callahan and thank James Callahan for the great work that he's done in the town of Narragansett, for his expertise and his knowledge. Thank you, and I'm sorry that you're probably not going to be staying around, James, but at this point, I just adamantly oppose Mark Davis. His record, you know, those cases that I just listed, follow them. Look on the Narragansett Town website to see the outcome of some of the conduct that we dealt with in the last term. And I think it's a wrong thing for the town of Narragansett. I really do, and I urge this council to reconsider this appointment tonight.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that Susan said what I would have said had I said it. So I totally agree with everything she said.
Councilor Lawler? Okay. So I appreciate everything that James Callahan has done for the town. We interviewed several candidates for solicitor. There were many that we interviewed. I think what it came down to me for who I would want as town solicitor was based on the availability of that individual. And when we interviewed several candidates, it seemed like everyone was stretched thin with all the other things that they had going on within their law practice, or if they were representing multiple municipalities. For me, I know that there's a lot going on in this town. We have a lot of really important issues to tackle. And so I really wanted that individual to be available and just be able to available to the staff as well as the council members. I've worked with Mr. Davis in the past when I was first on council last term, and I had a really great rapport with him. He was very responsive. He answered everything, with confidence. And I also think he was available to the staff. He constantly came here and made sure checked in with the staff. And when I make decisions for a lot of these positions too, I always take the feedback from the town staff, because ultimately on a day-to-day basis, the staff deal more with the town solicitor than the council does. So I took that into account, and I know that Mr. Davis, when he was serving as solicitor, he did have a great rapport with the staff. And James did as well. Again, for me, it's nothing personal. It's just how the availability and making sure that the town's needs are going to be met. So that's why I support Mr. Davis as our solicitor, because I know him, I've worked with him, and I think he's done a great job, and I think he will do a great job.
So I just want to comment about, availability. Mark Davis opened Pre-Pack, which is a cannabis glass, filling, I don't know what the containers. He's the president of that. I mean, what kind of time is that going to take? We didn't really get to talk about that, but that seems like a pretty big operation. And I think there'll probably be issues that might come up about cannabis in the town of Narragansett, so I don't know if that might be conflicting as well. So I mean, you know, what you just said, you know, you work well with him, and that's great. I didn't work so well with him, but I didn't even consider that. It's more about, is he a good lawyer for the town of Narragansett? But as far as the time goes, you know, the resume, he doesn't have a full boat of, you know, attorneys in his office, but he does have a big company that he's in charge of. So I'm just curious about what that entails for time for him, if that's how you make a decision. Do you know the answer to that? I mean, what kind of time?
I mean, I just based, like, when we interviewed, we spoken to him, he stated he would be available. And, you know, I take his word for that. And I don't think that would change because he's always been available in the past. And that's the feedback I've always gotten from anyone I've asked that's worked with him.
So,
but, you know, that's
there's
my
obviously
perspective.
a disagreement, but I just encourage the public and the residents to review some of the town tapes and see Mark Davis's interactions with not just the council, because the council, you know, it's a group, but I mean the residents, the different organizations that he dealt with.
Madam
Just
President,
take a
point
look.
of order. Mr. Ferrandi has not had a chance
He
to
did-
speak, and
he's-
Susan's
oh,
spoken
He's
twice
good.
now.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
I still have more to say
I
after.
did ask, and I thought he said he had no comment, so I apologize if you
Right.
did want to speak.
No, I didn't have much. What I can say about Mark Davis, I've seen, you know, in the previous council. I haven't personally worked with him, obviously. You know, and there were a lot of contentious issues last time around and everything else. But, you know, I don't think he did a bad job. And originally, you know, not unsimilar, not too different than we did in this council, where we were totally transparent in saying we were going to hold off the positions initially and look for new blood or what else was out there. And, you know, it might have not been as fair for Mark, but Mark and Steve Marsala were not appointed on that first council meeting 2020, so that appointment wasn't done till later on. You know, so it's similar. It's a difficult thing to do, but I don't have anything bad to say about Mark. I just, you know, that's what I'd like to say.
Well, you have worked with James, though. What's your position on James?
I don't really have a position on James. I've only worked with him for a couple,
But
you know,
you've never
a few
worked with
weeks.
Mark, but you have worked with James for
yeah.
like 4 months. It's been 4 months.
It's only been a couple of months, right?
Yeah, so,
He's got no position.
I guess not.
I think that's unfair, Susan, to say. He has a position. You know.
He
He just said he didn't have a position.
Actually,
Sorry.
I said, can I explain? I've said
Please,
what I said.
okay,
I
so
made my comments. That's what I'd like
everyone's
to
going
make
to talk
as a
one at a
comment.
time, and please no interrupting. When a council member is speaking, please no cross-talk. I would like Steve to finish, Council Ferrandi to finish any thoughts he may have, and if any other council member has anything to add, please let me know, and I will address you, and you can speak.
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I will open it up to the public. I know if there's anyone wishing to speak, you know, we do allow members of the public to speak on agenda items, and that's not changing for this meeting. I'm not wearing my glasses. I forgot my glasses, so I can't really see out there very well, but if you raise your hand, I will try to see if anyone wants to speak.
Mr. Shields.
Mr. Shields. You can state your name and address, please.
People interrupting people, other council members who wish to speak. I was particularly annoyed when you overspoke against Councilwoman Cicilline Bonanno because she had something to say and you overrode her comments. So I didn't hear what she had to say. So I think that's important for you to grant the council members a chance to speak, not just interrupt them. You may feel you have the authority to do that, but you really don't. So thank you. Now, to the point. I think this town needs to be careful about who it appoints to various positions within the organization, because It doesn't have a superb reputation around the state. It needs to improve its image to the rest of the state. And I think that only way that can be done is to appoint James Callahan, to reappoint him as town solicitor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Is there anyone else? Oh, Jesse Pugh.
Good evening.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi. Jesse Pugh, 40 Birchwood Drive. I just wanted to come up for a few minutes and speak in support of the nomination for the reappointment of James Callahan. It's really tough to find anything negative to say about James. I haven't heard anything negative tonight about him. Lifelong resident of town. He's worked years in town, stopped that work during his time as the current solicitor, previous council member, just very well respected in town and respectful of the council as well. Someone who would never disrespect or undercut or behave unprofessionally during the job that he did, which I think is maybe the most important trait you can really look for. When it comes to his qualifications, another thing to consider would be, his background. When you look at spreading someone, maybe someone who's spread too thin, which is something that we heard earlier, it's not just about time, it's also about knowledge. And when you look at his knowledge and compare it to the previous solicitor, I don't think there's much of a competition there. And if you remember the setup of the previous appointment, when Mark Davis was the solicitor, we actually also had an additional assistant solicitor to help him. And we even actually hired a third assistant solicitor at the end of the last term. So you had 2 to 3 people doing that job of town solicitor. With James, it was 1. His dad sat in for 1 meeting, I think, or actually it was a partial meeting. But his breadth of knowledge was really kind of incomparable to the other nomination tonight when it comes to municipal law. So, land use, that sort of thing. Those are cases that James would come in front of the planning board, the zoning board for constantly. So he has that. He has North Kingstown, Block Island. This is what he does. And that's just not the case with the other nomination tonight. So I think that's important to think about as well. Again, I guess I really just want to thank James for the work that he did. I don't know how it's going to go tonight with the vote. Obviously, there's still time to change your mind. We all kind of saw the results of the executive session. But again, thanks James, for your work. Thanks for the council for considering him as an option. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. Anyone else wishing to speak from the public? Ms. Rogers.
Good afternoon. Meg Rogers, 68 Earls Court. As we all know, back in 2019, when Mr. Davis was working here, he created a business which provides wholesale services to the recreational drug industry. So you're hiring an attorney, your legal counsel, who will inevitably be required to recuse on any matters coming before the council relating to licensing any businesses involved in the retail sale of recreational pot here in Narragansett. That is, unless his contract requires him to terminate his ownership or his directorship role in the business. So I'd like to know how you're going to handle that when it happens. And are you requiring him to rescind any and all involvement in that business? Now, less than a year ago, I was so grateful when I saw that our esteemed chief of police, in his capacity as president of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association, he submitted testimony to the House Finance Committee in that capacity, speaking for all of the police chiefs, to express their continued opposition to the legalization of marijuana here in Rhode Island. And the last sentence read, normalization of the recreational use of marijuana will have a compounded negative impact due to well-established factors and inevitably cause an increase in automobile accidents, injury, and death to our motoring populace, end quote. Now, we know, of course, the people of Narragansett, by a pretty slim margin, approve the placement of pot stores if someone seeks a license. But now, Eva, you just mentioned checking with the town staff and how important that is to you. And I want to believe you. So I will ask you, did you check with Chief Corrigan? And how would you feel if you were Chief Corrigan, knowing the town's elected officials think it's appropriate to hire a lawyer whose side hustle is making money from the recreational drug industry? How do you think our police officers feel? And I want to ask you to reconsider this, please. I don't blame Mark Davis, not at all. He cut the best deal he could for himself. But this is a very serious disconnect here. And I'm asking you to think about what message this sends to the students of Narragansett Middle School and High School that the lawyer you hire plays in the pot industry. It doesn't make sense. Now, in fairness, I doubt that any of you considered the adverse consequences and the unintended consequences this could
Ms.
have
Rogers,
to the
there
town.
are 3 minutes.
So I'm asking you to please reconsider.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Doherty?
Hi, thank you. Patrick Doherty of 9 Flint Drive in the north end of town. I'm also a business owner. I have my law practice located in the town at 887 Boston Neck Road. I have been involved in municipal law since I was in law school back in 1989. I have represented cities and towns across the state as special counsel. I've been a solicitor for a long time in the town of Burrillville. I love the town of Narragansett. I reside here. I've been a resident here for over 20 years now. I brought my practice down here in 2007. I've raised 3 children in this town, and I deeply care for our town and the issues that are surrounding us. I've been watching the vitriol with such disappointment in my heart for what people are putting our town through as a result of the issues that are being brought before you here tonight. I don't have anything bad to say about any of the previous solicitors, but they're big boys, and they know that every time a council comes in, you are vested with the right and the obligation to pick your legal counsel. That's in our charter. Don't delegate your choices and your rights to this bully pulpit with the people that are coming up here spewing vitriol and trying to distract you on issues that they're really not well founded on. I disagree that Mr. Davis would have to recuse himself on anything concerning pot in the industry. And I voted against having pot in our town, but that's been done. It's a matter of a vote, and it's decided. But you have the right to pick the lawyer that you want to work with. And there are 5 of you up there. So a vote of 3 carries who that choice will be. And if people cared enough about this town, they would accept our charter, they would accept the results of what is delegated to you as the council members, and to allow you the opportunity to do your jobs with the personnel that you want. I have profound respect for our solicitor. I refer matters to him when I have conflicts. I don't have anything bad to say about him, but what I do have bad things to say about is the vitriol that is being spewed upon the members of this council from all sides. And it's not the way matters should be handled in our town. I know that each one of you up there cares as much for this town and loves this town as much as I do. Let's stop with this, let you do your jobs, and let you have the power that is granted to you in the charter. And if you don't agree with the majority, and if the people behind me don't want to go with that choice, then I suggest they run for council and get a vote to appoint solicitors. Thank you.
Anyone else speak? Mr. Hames?
Hi, Win Hames, 30 Wood Avenue, Narragansett. Excuse me. That was quite a speech, Pat. I think the issue here, though, is selecting the most qualified candidate to advise our town on legal matters. You quite haven't been here as long as I have. And I can go back to the 70s and the 80s where every time a town council was elected, they would change the town solicitor, change the town sergeant, change the police chief, change the fire chief. I do not want to see us go back to that type of politics in this town. We have an extremely qualified solicitor right now, somebody who was raised in this town, somebody who has more experience than probably any other town solicitor in this state. He, and including his father, who was a town solicitor here for years and years back in the 70s, or I should say 80s and 90s. You will not find a more qualified group of attorneys to be a town to represent this town than you will the Callahans. Nothing against Mr. Davis, but Mr. Davis to say you only want him to do one particular town, that you have more time. James lives not too far. James lives 2 miles from here. I do believe James has been available to each and every one of you whenever you've needed him. To be selected as North Kingston, to selected as Block Island, and to also be considered for other town solicitor positions within the state, it just it just goes to his qualifications as being one of the best town solicitors there is in this state. I'd be sorely disappointed, really disappointed if you went the other way with this. You know, I can't say that much I mean, I had James in Little League. That's how far go back with him. His father and I coached in Little League. I was here and I had disagreements with Matt Callahan when he was a town solicitor. But we've always come to a conclusion, and the Callahans have always represented this town in the most professional way that's been possible, and I just can't say enough about it. I do not like this, let's select somebody else, With disagreement with Pat, it does not lead to continuity for this town. It does not give this town a good look. When I go to my meetings at city and town chairs, people say, what's going on in Narragansett? I say, well, we have a little bit of a disagreement in town. But I go back to when you hired you changed your planning personnel, you listed qualifications, you went the best qualified. You're not going with the best qualified person in this instance.
Thank you, Mr. Hames. Ms. Amoroso?
Susan Amoruso, 111 West Bay Drive. I really wasn't going to speak tonight because, I don't know. I sent emails to all of you, and I only got responses from 2, and that's an issue for another day maybe, but I think that you would at least need to acknowledge that you've received someone's email, not that you have to respond anything other than that. But I'm just sitting here saying, so we have a very qualified candidate who has served and who has no loss cases in his column. And yet we're going to revert back to someone who, for one reason or another, was involved in a lot of decisiveness and who has negative outcomes on quite a few critical cases. So that's a point of record. And like Mr. Haynes was saying, the planning board, there was somebody who was very good, but this other person had better qualifications. I'm not hearing outstanding qualifications to beat Mr. Callahan. I'm not hearing it. He's got losses, some of them critical for the town. Mr. Callahan doesn't. And the whole thing about availability, Eva, if you could say, I tried to get him in the past 2 years and he was never available. But that's not an issue, unless you're saying it's an issue. You think Mr. Davis is more? I don't know. You've got to have, I don't understand why that's an issue if every time you had a legal question for him, he was available, gave you a prompt answer. I see prompt answers in town council meetings, so I just don't understand this, why you would take your top player out and put in someone whose track record more than suggests that he's the second stringer. It just doesn't make sense, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, no one else wishing to speak? Okay. Mr. Zonfrillo?
Good afternoon, Town Council. Good afternoon, Town Democrats. Change is tough. You know, the 1980s called, it wants its towny government back. And we talk about the vitriol. I mean, the letter that was in the paper today, the assault on, winning the election, that's what this is all about. And Mr. Doherty, beautiful job speaking up now. So you have every right to change the solicitor, and it's at your discretion. Thank you.
I can't.
Matt Mannix.
Oh, Mr. Mannix?
Matt Mannix, Bonnet Shores. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the vitriol, and we had a 2018-2020 term, which was really not ruled by, it was ruled by an angry mob. That's what happened. And I had to, Mark Davis, people want to disparage his skills legally. There was many open meetings complaints from HRC, all these different things that Mark, as we were constantly attacked at meetings, council members constantly attacked during that time by people who were uninformed on the issues, they came. Mark navigated us successfully through that at that time. I also served in a nicer time to serve. You know, we didn't have headlines like, it's time to be angry at Eva Dzerzhinsky. Instead, in those days, me, Susan, and James could sit at the Dunes Club at a school fundraiser. Me, Susan, and James Callahan could sit at a Dunes Club fundraiser. Jimmy Durkin would come up to us and say, oh, we know there's no Open Meetings Act violation because you guys don't vote together, but we're sitting there and we were social and we were able to talk to each other, and that's gone. So let's try to maybe actually think of those times and why there's the appointment of the solicitor and why the council has that prerogative. Mark is very qualified for the role, as is James. In these situations, a lot of times this is about fit for the council, somebody that the council is comfortable with. There were times in the past, there were times I was on the council and there were changes in the solicitor position. And a lot of times it comes down to fit. Mark McSally qualified, James qualified, Mark Davis qualified. And I say Mark Davis qualified because people don't know what went on behind the scenes back then. And there's still a lot of people really upset about the 2018-2020 term and how horrible that was. And I hear mumbling from members of the angry mob, and that's all they have. That's all you have is anger. That's what you want to bring it back. Make Narragansett angry again. That's the headline, right? Make Narragansett angry. So on that, I just say it's the decision of the council. Some of you have a better fit with others. I know that when we made town manager decisions, the same thing would happen. We'd have a couple qualified candidates. If we go back to think of solicitor, Mark Davis and Patty O'Neill were our final two candidates when we picked Patty O'Neill, and then Patty O'Neill got the judgeship. And so we basically said, well, we're going to go with Mark because we had two really good candidates. And I'm just going to briefly comment on on that front in terms of the fit. When you're looking at fits with boards, I would encourage everybody, I know it's a different appointment, but your zoning and planning boards have indicated to you what a fit would be for them. And I would encourage you on the Assistant Solicitor for Zoning and Planning to at least hold that a little bit, because Steve Marcella is very qualified there, and it's about the fit with the zoning and planning boards. So just as Mark Davis is a good fit for this council, I think for zoning and planning, the fit is Steve Marcella, and they've expressed that to you. So I'm very supportive of Mark Davis. I know he's honest and not political, and I hope you appoint him. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mannix. Ms. Denuccio?
Nancy Denuccio, Vanderbilt Drive, Narragansett. Everybody has said, what they have wanted to say, and I just wanted to support the nomination of James Callahan. I thought that he did a wonderful job over the last term. I thought for sure that Steve would be in favor of him, because I think his experience with trying to move the rental issues that we have, the three-person or the student rental issues, I think that he would be a better fit for the council for that. Certainly as a substance abuse prevention specialist, I'm not in favor of Mark Davis for a number of different reasons, with his support of all the cannabis issues that he's involved with. But basically, I'm just here to say I hope that you would go vote for James Callahan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we'll go back to the council for some, everyone will get a chance to speak again. We'll start with Ms. Kopek. Do you have any comments, any final thoughts?
Nope.
Councilor Lawler?
Nothing.
Councilor Ferrandi?
I have no comment.
Councilor Cicilline?
I just
Bonanno?
asked the council if they would reconsider and consider Callahan at the vote.
Okay. Thank you. So again, getting back to, I personally did not like the way that things ended in my first council with Mr. Davis. I think it was one of the most uncomfortable moments that I had experienced, to date. So again, my choice would be to continue to actually work with Mr. Davis. As I said before, there's nothing that I have. I think Mr. Callahan is a great person, has done a good job, but it is the prerogative of the council to choose who they want to serve as their solicitor, and my choice tonight would be Mr. Davis. So I don't know if anyone wants to make a nomination or a motion.
Move to appoint Mark Davis as solicitor.
Is there a second?
No, I was going to move to
Is there a
nominate.
second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to appoint Mr. Mark Davis as the solicitor. Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferrandi. Motion's on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion passes 3-2. Mr. Davis is the new solicitor. Thank you. Okay, so on the next, moving on to the next agenda item. So there are two big hearings scheduled imminently on March 16th, and there's a State House Housing Authority Board hearing. All three of these issues are very complicated, and there's not enough time for someone taking this new role on now to get up to speed, and it would be unfair to potentially set anyone up for failure and adversely affect the town. I think it may be in the best interest of the town to table agenda item regarding assistant solicitor at this time.
I'll make the motion to table.
Second.
Can we discuss? I'm confused.
So where there's a motion there's a motion to table this agenda item, meaning we're not going to discuss assistant solicitor, and we're not going to move to appoint anyone new. And that's pretty much. It's all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Excuse
so,
me.
Sorry.
I'm confused. I don't know what's.
I'm sorry.
You can discuss the motion to table.
Okay.
Janet said, thank you.
Yes. So would anybody like to?
So I'm a little confused by this. If I remember,
Okay, so let's, so we
wait,
would
I
have
just
to-
want to, I forgot to bring my sheet that said what we were doing today. I just want to verify that we were supposed to be discussing both the assistant solicitor and the solicitor positions and the votes, right? I just want to be sure. Janet, is that
Well,
correct?
that's what we have, so let's.
That is correct.
So we'll make a motion.
So what we're asking for here is to table the second motion that we had, because we have outstanding things that need to be done that our current assistant solicitor is more competent to do? Or, I mean, I'm confused.
I mean, I'm a little, I don't understand.
So I'm just going to, hold on, I'm going to confer with our town clerk. So I know there was a motion, a second motion on the agenda, and that was to discuss, vote, and appoint the assistant solicitor. Does that have to be voted upon, or can that be changed? Can there be a motion to table that without opening discussion?
Maybe we need a solicitor.
Yes.
Can't hear you.
So we have a motion to table.
No.
It's on. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you can table the motion.
Okay. So the motion that we're discussing right now is a motion to table, the motion to discuss, vote, and appoint the assistant solicitor. The motion was made by Councilor Lawler, and it was seconded by Councilor Ferrandi. So now we need to take a vote on it. All in favor?
Wait, do we take, you
Aye.
want to take public comment on this?
They can, the motion wasn't, you can take public comment on the motion to table.
Only on the motion to table.
Only on the motion to table.
Yes. Okay, so
Let's do that.
first, I'll go to the council first. Would anyone like to comment on the motion to table? Councilor
comment.
Kopek?
I have no comment.
No comment.
Councilor Ferrandi?
No.
Councilor Lawler?
I agree with your comments, but there's a lot going on, and the solicitor we were discussing can't be here for a while, so let's just table this.
Okay, so we'll open to public comment for the motion to table. Jesse Pugh?
Jesse Pugh, 40 Birchwood Drive. I understand it's just a motion to table. I do wonder if it would be beneficial to the council and to the current solicitor to make the appointment. You've said that he's the qualified person to do the work. He's able to do the work. It also seems a little insensitive or awkward to ask him to stay on and do this work while he knows that you're basically just waiting to then hire somebody else shortly. So why not make the appointment, and then if you're not happy with the work that's being done over the next few months, you can always, like you said, the solicitors serve at the pleasure of the council. You can end that at any time. If you're unhappy with his work, then you can move on without him. So I'll stay on topic for the tabling. I'm not going to talk too much about Mr. Marcella, but I think he's obviously qualified, had the testimonials from multiple boards. So I would say just hold the vote and keep him on.
Yeah. Ms. Nuccio?
Nancy DiNuccio, Vanderbilt Drive. I understand the reason to table. I have no problem with that at all. I just don't feel like you've explained yourselves well as to why you're doing that. I don't get it.
Is it for?
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? I'll let the council speak again after. Mr. Doherty?
Patrick Doherty, 9 Flint Drive, and offices at 887 Boston Neck Road. This is your decision. This isn't this room. There are many people that couldn't. I took time out of work to come down here because I'm very saddened by by the tone that's going on, the public discord, and the fact that you're being prohibited from moving on with doing the business of the town as a result of these squabbles. Do what you want. You were voted in. Each of the 5 of you received the votes, and you were voted in to represent the interests of the town of Narragansett. And it's not just the people that show up and scream from the bully pulpit at these meetings. It's not the people who write op-ed pieces in the paper. It's the entire population of the town of Narragansett. And I know, as I said before, all of us love the town of Narragansett. Do what you have the right to do. You don't have to listen to the vocal mob back here. You should do what you feel in your hearts is the right thing. And don't be intimidated. Go on and take the authority that was vested in you by the voters and follow your conscience and do what you feel is the right, just, and appropriate thing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Mr. Zonfrillo.
Mr. Doherty's 100% right. You know, there's the angry mob is trying to micromanage the council. So do what you got to do. Thanks.
Is anyone else wishing to speak from the public? Seeing none, I'll go back to the council. I'll start with Councilor Kopech. Any final thoughts?
Well, I do have an editorial thought, and that is for 28 months, we never heard the phrase angry mob, and I'm really not happy that it's been resurrected. But in the meantime, what I would say is that this is not about a mob. This is about a shock. I did not expect this to happen tonight. I thought we were going to have a vote. I think that what Mr. Pugh said makes some sense. Why don't we take a vote?
Okay. Any other?
I mean, I do want to say one more thing. You know, we had to have known before tonight that these issues were coming up in terms of work that needed to be done in March. I was not aware that Ms. Pearson wasn't going to be able to make it for some time. That's news to me. There's a lot of news to me that I haven't heard before. So I'm really sort of shocked at what's going on this evening. I just want to make that point.
Councilor Ferrandi?
No comment.
Councilor Lawler?
The only thing I want to add is in Jim's weekly report last Friday, it did include that Ms. Pearson could not be until I think March 6th or March 7th, so it was in the weekly report.
Councilor Cicely Bonanno, any
So-
final thoughts?
Yeah, I did know that Diane wasn't going to be able to make it, but I'm confused because in executive, we did a vote, it was posted publicly, we were all set for this appointment, sort of, from what was put out in the public, and I don't understand why we're not finishing the vote tonight. Is it because she can't come and Steve's got to stay and continue the work for the town? Is that the reason to continue?
So the reason to table it is so that we're not taking a vote, so no changes are going to be made. Mr. Masella is going to continue representing us, and he's agreed to represent us, and it's an indefinite tabling of the motion. So it's going to be business as usual. The magnitude of the things that we have going on in town is really overwhelming. I mean, when I was listening to everything that is happening in very, very near future, we shouldn't be changing out. And I came to that realization, and I think that's why when I started assessing how important these issues are going to be and how a change could definitely impact the trajectory of how things could be the outcome. I took pause to that. So
Okay, so that's great. So now I understand what the tabling is, and I can concur.
So tabling
It's
is
a
just
huge
putting-
surprise.
But I think the other point is, why don't we just reappoint Mr. Marcella tonight?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I think, because we
I mean,
have,
you said tabling indefinitely, so why don't we just, finish this now And if something changes, I think what Mr. Pugh said is really a good point. Why don't we just take it up later?
I'm happy to do that.
It's the same result. So okay, so we have a motion. We have a motion on the table to table the motion to discuss, vote, and appoint the assistant solicitor. So we need to take a vote on that. So again, we all have our individual votes. We are equal in voting. So it's up to this council to decide whether this is tabled or whether we go forward with an appointment. So at this time, I will take the vote. And in the vote, we're voting to table the motion to discuss, vote, and appoint the assistant solicitor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so the motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferrandi, motion passes 3-2. So next on the agenda, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor